I have spoken to a number of people who say that these hurt them and changed their lives for the
Can cause bone density loss. I have significant bone loss.
It's horrible.
Overnight makeovers, vanishing cheeks, timelines that don't add up. A diabetes shot turned Hollywood status symbol is reshaping red carpets, and not always in a good way. Some stars admit it, others deny it. A few hint at side effects they wish they'd never met. We're laying it all out. Who owned it, who pushed back, and where the rumors won't die. Clearly labeled, so you know what's fact and what's just talk. Stay to the end, because this trend didn't stop at the needle. Someone tried to bottle it. First up, when too thin stopped being a flex. She wanted control. What she got felt like a switch that wouldn't turn off. Sharon Osbourne didn't hide behind vague wellness talk. She said the quiet part out loud. She used a weight loss shot. The pounds fell off fast, and then the number on the scale kept sliding until even she got scared. She described herself as too gaunt, struggling to put any weight back on, and said she dipped under 100 pounds. Far past the point where compliments feel like concern. The story didn't end when she stopped. That's the part most people don't hear. She said quitting didn't instantly reset her appetite or her body. The momentum kept pulling, and every meal felt like work. It's the hidden cost of a shot that makes hunger whisper. Getting off it can leave the dial stuck low. She's been open about the frustration, about wanting to gain, about not liking how the mirror suddenly told a much harsher story. Sharon's honesty cut through the glossy before and after posts. She's lived public battles with weight for decades, tried surgery, tried willpower, and finally tried the modern shortcut everyone whispers about. Her verdict isn't a sermon, it's a warning label. Be careful what you wish for. If you're older, if you have other health stuff going on, if you think this is a casual summer fix, think again. She said exactly that, especially to younger fans watching celebs shrink on their For You pages. And here's what hits hardest. She doesn't deny the draw. She understands why people do it, but in her words, the trade-off wasn't worth the after photo. Feeling frail, looking older, and fighting to reverse it isn't the fantasy anyone signs up for. That's why her interviews landed like a reality check across Hollywood. If a seasoned star with access to the best care can overshoot the mark, what happens to everyone else chasing quick results? Her chapter sets the tone for this whole video. This isn't finger-pointing, it's consequence mapping. Some admit it, some deny it. With Sharon, the receipts are public, and the lesson's bigger than the headline. Because the next story isn't just about using the drug. It's about how one icon turned a private choice into a national debate that reshaped the entire conversation. She didn't just try a prescription and move on. She put the whole conversation in prime time. Oprah Winfrey publicly said she uses a doctor-prescribed weight loss medication as a tool to avoid yo-yoing, without naming the brand, and framed it as releasing years of shame around her body. Days before her TV deep dive, she separated herself from the business most tied to her weight story. In late February 2024, Oprah announced she was stepping off the Weight Watchers board and donating all her WW stock to the Smithsonian's National Museum of African American History and Culture. An unmistakable message about conflicts and optics as the GLP-1 wave surged. Then came the broadcast that made GLP-1's dinner table talk. An Oprah special, Shame, Blame, and the Weight Loss Revolution, aired March 18, 2024 on ABC, streaming next day on Hulu, mixing doctors, patients, and hard questions. Who should get these meds? What about access for diabetics? What are the long-term risks? The special didn't just inform, it normalized discussing medication without whispering. She also addressed the emotional toll head-on. In a follow-up clip, Oprah said she'd released the shame after decades of public ridicule over weight, reframing obesity as a medical condition rather than a moral failing. That nuance became a hinge point for how mainstream media covered GLP-1s. But going first has a cost. In January 2025, remarks on her podcast about realizing thin people might simply eat when hungry and stop when full triggered a social media blowback. Critics argued the comment oversimplified lived experience. Whether you agree or not, the reaction proved how loaded this topic remains, even when the messenger is Oprah. Net effect, her journey created a template. Acknowledge medical help, talk openly about stigma, and invite experts to demystify the science. It also drew a line between personal choice and public responsibility, especially for figures whose words can shift markets and mindsets. When Oprah moved, the narrative and a legacy brand moved with her. But not everyone who tried the shot stayed on it or felt it helped. Next up, a host who says he gave it a go, didn't love the results, and chose a different path. He didn't melt away overnight. In fact, he says the shot barely moved the needle. On his SiriusXM podcast, This Life of Mine, James Corden admitted he tried Ozempic, and it didn't really work for him. The reveal wasn't coy or coded. He said it plainly and moved on. Why not? His answer cuts through the hype. These meds quiet hunger. His eating, he says, wasn't driven by hunger. He described himself as the guy who could crush a giant chocolate bar in a car wash, not because his stomach was growling, but because food was filling a different gap. If the problem is emotional eating, a fullness signal won't fix the script playing in your head. So he stopped. No dramatic speech, no wellness rebrand, just a clear takeaway. A weekly pen won't rewrite a decades-long relationship with food. That line resonated because it punctures the fantasy of a one-step solution. For some people, GLP-1s are a helpful tool. For him, they weren't the tool. And hearing a high-profile figure say that out loud gave a lot of viewers permission to admit the same. There's a bigger lesson here about expectation setting. Corden wasn't warning anyone off the medication. He was challenging the storyline that willpower finally comes in a vial. If your triggers are stress, boredom, celebration, anything but genuine appetite, then a drug designed to mute hunger may feel like you brought a sponge to a house fire. It might help at the edges, but it won't rebuild the walls. That's not shade, it's scope. And in 2025, he doubled down on the point. Ozempic wasn't his path. The choice was personal, the reason practical, and the message consistent. Use what works, ditch what doesn't. That grounded tone kept this from turning into another celebrity secret. Reveal, and instead made it a reality check for anyone expecting magic. Corden's chapter matters because it reframes the stakes. Not every transformation is about appetite. Not every plateau is a prescription away. Sometimes the hard part isn't the snack, it's the story behind the snack. Up next, someone who did feel the physical fallout and decided the trade-off wasn't worth the day-to-day cost. She says the weight came off fast, and so did her ability to function. Amy Schumer has been blunt. She tried a prescription weight loss shot, dropped around 30 pounds, and then hit a wall of nausea and fatigue that made everyday life feel impossible. "I looked great," she joked later, "but I couldn't lift my head off the pillow." Her first public warning came back in 2023. On Watch What Happens Live, she told Andy Cohen she felt so sick. She couldn't even play with her son. The message wasn't glamorous or coy. It was a parent saying the trade-off wasn't worth missing real life. That line echoed across headlines because it punctured the fantasy of effortless transformation. By early 2025, she expanded the story. The side effects weren't random. She'd learned she has a marker tied to nausea sensitivity, GDF15, which may explain why the medication flattened her energy and left her bedridden. It wasn't willpower, it was biology refusing to cooperate. That detail turned her experience into something bigger than celebrity gossip, a reminder that bodies react differently and the downside can be brutal. The most striking part is what she did next. She didn't spin it into a hustle or a secret routine. She stopped the drug and used her platform to ask for honesty, urging other public figures to be straight about what they're taking and to acknowledge the messy parts along with the photos. In a culture built on curated afters, that candor is jolting and useful. Her chapter reads like a caution sign for anyone thinking a weekly pen erases the deeper work. If your day runs on chasing kids, writing, rehearsals, or just showing up as yourself, side effects that bench you are more than an inconvenience. They rewrite priorities. Schumer didn't dismiss the medication for everyone. She just showed what not worth it looks like when the cost is your ability to be present. And that's the conversation most before and after posts never have. But that wasn't the whole story. Some celebrities kept quiet until the evidence was literally sitting on a shelf. Up next, a reality TV mainstay who tried to keep the whispers off his name, until one quick refrigerator shot turned speculation into an admission. It wasn't an anonymous tip or a blurry paparazzi shot. It was his own refrigerator. In the season 5 premiere of The Kardashians, fans froze the frame and spotted boxes of Mounjaro tucked beside the almond milk, instantly turning speculation about Scott Disick's slim down into something you could literally zoom in on. Khloe even joked later, "Hide your meds," after the unintentional reveal. The context matters. Scott had been open about packing on pounds after a 2022 car crash left him with back issues and less movement. The weight gain plus snack-heavy habits set the stage for a drastic fix. That fridge moment simply brought it all into focus. This wasn't rumor. It was visible on national TV. Nearly a year later, he addressed it head-on. During a February 2025 episode, Scott said out loud what viewers already suspected. Yes, he took Mounjaro. No hedging. No cryptic wellness speak. Just an admission and a shrug. "I'm not embarrassed," he said, pushing back at the idea that using a prescription should be shameful. The clapback went viral, not because the news shocked anyone, but because the tone did. He also gave the why. Post-injury, he'd slipped into a routine that reads like a caution label. Late-night Hawaiian rolls, endless ginger ales, convenience over recovery. He says the weight piled on before he really noticed, and the weekly pen became the lever to pull things back. Fans heard a familiar story. Life gets messy, and shortcuts look clean. What makes Scott's chapter sticky for viewers is how public the paper trail is. You can follow the timeline. The fridge sighting in 2024, the noticeable changes over that year, the on-camera "so what" in early 2025. That arc turns a private medical choice into a case study in modern celebrity transparency, willing or not, and it reframes the conversation around stigma. If the guy at the center of the meme isn't ashamed, what exactly are we policing? There's also a quieter takeaway underneath the headlines. The pen wasn't the whole plan. Scott talked about dialing in his routine and relearning normal eating after the initial drop, which is the unglamorous maintenance that never goes viral. The camera caught the boxes. It didn't capture the boring, daily course correction that keeps the result from boomeranging. Some celebrities keep their methods so vague they barely sound real. The next story is different. A star who says she didn't even realize what she'd been given until the side effects forced a hard stop. She says she didn't even realize what she'd been given. Chelsea Handler told Call Her Daddy that her anti-aging doctor just hands it out to anybody, and that she didn't know semaglutide was Ozempic until a friend spelled it out. The way she frames it isn't glamorous. It's a wake-up call about how casually these meds can slide into a routine. The moment of realization was almost sitcom simple. She'd injected a dose after a trip, met a friend for lunch, and heard, "I'm so nauseous. I'm on Ozempic." Chelsea felt the same way, chalked it up to jet lag, until she said she was on semaglutide and her friend replied, "That's Ozempic." That's when she tapped out. "I'm not on it anymore. That's too irresponsible. I'm not gonna take a diabetic drug." Short, blunt, and very public. What followed stirred the internet even more. She joked that she'd injected about 4 or 5 friends with leftover pens, while warning the whole craze would backfire. It was part overshare, part siren, because she also pointed to the ethics. People who medically need these drugs were running into shortages while Hollywood treated them like a quick fix. The contradiction landed harder than any punchline. Strip the headlines, and her message is pretty straightforward. These shots mute hunger. They don't solve why some of us eat when we're not hungry. They need medical oversight. They aren't party favors. And if your only goal is to drop 5 pounds, you're outside what the drug was designed for. That nuance, the difference between clinical use and cosmetic dabbling, is exactly what gets lost in glossy before and afters. Chelsea's chapter works as the early warning in this video. Not a morality play, just consequences. Casual prescribing made it feel normal. The side effects and stigma made it feel wrong. She exited, said why, and turned her story into a public service announcement. Be honest about what you're taking, why you're taking it, and who might be paying the price when supply runs thin. It's not anti-medication, it's pro-context. But that wasn't the whole story. Some stars say they only dabbled, then moved on, crediting routine and discipline for most of the work. Next up, a headline maker whose brief try sparked a much bigger debate about how common this really is in Hollywood. She didn't pretend it was magic. Rebel Wilson says she briefly tried Ozempic after her big year of health as a maintenance tool when cravings felt louder than willpower. The way she put it to the Sunday Times, someone like her could have a bottomless appetite for sweets, and a GLP-1 can help turn the volume down. She also says she isn't on it now. The timeline matters. Her main transformation started back in 2020 with training, a high-protein plan, and tough habit changes. Only later, once the weight was off, did she dabble with the med to keep things steady. That nuance tends to get flattened online, where used Ozempic gets read as that's how she did it. Her own framing is different. Diet and workouts did the heavy lifting. The injection was a short-term guardrail. She also talks about the why, and it's not a vanity line. Emotional eating, late-night sweets, and stress, patterns she's been open about, were the real fight. A drug that blunts appetite can't fix feelings, but it can stall the spiral long enough to make a better choice. That's her take, and it's why her admission set off so much debate. Is it cheating, or just another tool like therapy, coaching, or meal planning? There's an honesty to her offsets too. She's admitted to weight fluctuations during hectic stretches because bodies aren't spreadsheets, and says she's focused more on balance than on a specific number. That admission carries weight, no pun, because it clashes with the internet's favorite narrative: permanent after photos that never budge. Real life does. What makes this chapter sticky is how reasonable it sounds. Brief maintenance use, back to routine, owning the cravings piece without shaming herself. No miracle claims, no secrets, just a candid acknowledgement that tools exist and that she tested one. In a culture obsessed with catching celebs in a gotcha, the simpler explanation isn't always the clicky one. It's often the true one. Still, one decision can change the storyline. The moment you say, "I tried it," you join a headline, and every future selfie becomes evidence for someone's theory. Wilson seems unfazed. She says the work is still the work. Protein, movement, consistency, and a calmer relationship with food. The pen helped for a minute. The habits have to carry it the rest of the way. But not everyone narrates their methods this clearly. Up next is the celebrity who transformed fast, smiled for the cameras, and kept the how locked behind a polite, strategic silence. The photos changed. The questions didn't. Mindy Kaling slimmed down fast enough to trigger the most 2023 rumor of all, the injection. She didn't play along. When asked about her wellness journey, she shut it down, saying it's not exciting to talk about her body and that the topic hijacks every conversation. That refusal became the story. Headlines framed it as a strategic silence after a visible shift at high-profile moments. Think the 2023 Oscars, when even the host joked about Hollywood's new favorite miracle. Social timelines filled the blanks with their own theories, but Kaling stayed off the specifics. What she has talked about is the unglamorous stuff: long walks, runs, hikes, strength work, and eating in moderation. In 2023, she told people she logs about 20 miles a week and lifts with a trainer. In 2024, she doubled down: portion control, low-impact cardio, and consistency over spectacle. No miracle claims, no brand name drops, just routine. The speculation didn't stop, it evolved. By early 2025, fan chatter hit a new pitch. Some praising discipline, others worrying she looked unrecognizable. Paparazzi angles did the rest. Still, no admission, no denial. Only more emphasis on fitness and feeling comfortable in her skin. That gap between public curiosity and her boundary kept the narrative humming. Here's why her chapter holds attention. It's a Rorschach test. If you want a mid-story, you'll assemble one from before-after grids and timing. If you want a grind story, you'll point to miles logged and a year's worth of steady training. Kaling knows this and chooses to talk about work, not weight. That's smart branding, but it also guards her privacy in a culture that treats bodies like public property. So where does that leave viewers? With a useful split screen. On one side, a modern internet mystery powered by rumor and zoomed-in cheeks. On the other, a repeatable plan. Walks, lifts, smaller portions, less noise. Both can be true in the comments section. Only one is on the record. And until she changes that, the fairest read is simple: visible change, method unconfirmed. But that wasn't the whole story. Some stars don't just avoid the question, they flatly deny the meds and take the heat anyway. Next up, a pop icon who says the answer is willpower, not a weekly pen, and why that stance keeps the spotlight hotter. The picture sparked the question. Her answer never changed. Jessica Simpson has flat out denied using Ozempic, crediting old-fashioned grit instead. Asked point blank in an interview, she laughed it off. "Oh Lord, it is not. It's willpower." The line stuck because she didn't qualify or tease. She shut the door. That denial didn't arrive in a vacuum. The Ozempic conversation was peaking, and any visible shift in a celebrity's face or frame became instant internet math. Simpson pushed back in real time, tying her change to choices: sobriety, routine, and staying the course, rather than a weekly pen. The coverage repeated the same takeaway. She says it wasn't the shot. There's a personal edge to how she talks about the scrutiny. She said the commentary hurts and that the noise around her size can even confuse her kids. That's the part headline hunters miss. These rumors don't just follow a brand. They land at home, at school pickup, in family conversations she never wanted to have. If you're tracking timelines, the story stays consistent into 2024 and 2025. Lifestyle write-ups and listicles revisited her transformation and again noted her stance: diet, discipline, and no GLP-1s. Even when the trend ballooned and more celebs admitted trying something, Simpson kept repeating the same two words: it's willpower, and moved on. Why does this chapter hold viewers? Because it's the mirror image of a confession arc. No, I tried it. No, it wasn't for me. No wink. Just a public figure insisting the result came from choices most people can, in theory, copy. Tracking intake, moving more, staying sober, and letting time do its job. You can argue with the feasibility. You can't argue with the clarity. There's also a culture lesson tucked in. When every slim down becomes proof of a prescription, honest denials start sounding like PR, even when they aren't. Simpson seems to know that and refuses to feed the loop. She names the work, shrugs at the noise, and keeps the method private beyond the basics. So for this video, her placement isn't about catching a gotcha. It's about showing the other template in 2025. A firm no, repeatedly stated, with the internet still doing its detective thing anyway. That tells you as much about the moment as it does about her. Next up, a pop powerhouse who got the same whispers and chose to swat them away with training logs and a swimmer's routine rather than more words. The images got sharper, the comments got harsher, and the same question followed her into every thread. Did she? Katy Perry's answer has been consistent. No weekly pen, no miracle shortcut. She points to training blocks, stage conditioning, and a tightened routine. While timelines on social feeds spun up theories, she kept giving a boring explanation that never trends. Reps, rest, repeat. Here's why the chatter stuck anyway. Perry's look can swing with work cycles, rehearsals, performance runs, camera-heavy weeks. So you'll catch a more angular face here, a softer look there, and the internet loves to turn lighting into a lab report. Add in the meme phrase, Ozempic face, and every close-up becomes evidence. She's pushed back on that whole narrative, framing her changes as the result of structure. Swimming laps, core work, and a cleaner plate when she's in grind mode. It's not a sexy story, but it is a sustainable one. What keeps this chapter engaging isn't a confession, it's the gap between expectation and reality. Fans want a single cause. She offers a stack of small, unglamorous habits: early workouts, vocal-friendly meals, and the discipline that comes with preparing to be watched for 2 hours straight under bright, unforgiving lights. Anyone who's trained for a tour, a residency, or even a long shoot knows the drill. Your day becomes a metronome. For some bodies, that metronome leans you out fast. There's another layer: optics. Perry's brand has always been maximal. Color, camp, big hooks, bigger sets. When her face reads sharper on a carpet, it creates a jarring contrast with the cartoon pop image people expect. That mismatch feeds rumor mills more than the change itself. She's learned to ride that wave without giving it oxygen. Smile, sing, rehearse, repeat. And buried in that approach is a useful reminder for viewers. Sometimes the secret really is the spreadsheet: sleep, steps, macros, miles. It's not proof she couldn't be on anything. It's proof that you can't diagnose a face from a photo roll. She's drawn the boundary, and until she says otherwise, the fairest read is the simplest one: a professional performer tightening screws when the spotlight's on. But the next story isn't about boundaries or denials. It's about a veteran who rebuilt himself the old-fashioned way, slowly, publicly, and without the injection discourse trailing him at every turn. The headlines called it unrecognizable. He called it work. John Goodman didn't vanish in a month. He carved off weight over years, quitting alcohol in 2007, hiring trainer Mackie Shilstone, and swapping chaos for Mediterranean-style routine. Walks with his dogs, boxing, portion control, fewer sweets, fewer excuses. By 2023, he was down around 200 pounds, and he's kept the line steady since. That's not a fad, that's a calendar. Look back at the timeline, and it reads like a case study. He hit his heaviest near 400 pounds, decided he was done with the pendulum, and built a system he could live with. 6 workouts a week when schedules allow, a diet built around olive oil, lean proteins, and produce, and a hard boundary with booze. He's talked openly about how drinking and overeating were tangled, and how ditching one helped calm the other. The result showed up on red carpets in Monaco in 2023 and again through 2024 to 2025 appearances. Same man, smaller frame, calmer energy. Internet chatter tried to cram him into the Ozempic storyline. He didn't. On the record, Goodman credits the boring stuff: movement, food, sobriety, repetition. Outlets repeat the same beats because that's what he says. No miracle reveal, just consistency and time. When tabloids toss in speculation, remember the source and look back at his own words. If there's a secret here, it's that he kept going when the camera moved on. There's a culture lesson in the way he did it. Slow changes don't go viral, they hold. Goodman's story reframes the era's obsession with overnight aftershots. If you rebuild habits, the face changes last, and it changes different. Less whiplash, less gaunt, more lived in. That's why his chapter belongs in this lineup. It proves a transformation can be dramatic without being dramatic about it. For viewers, the takeaway is practical. Don't chase someone else's timeline. Chase a routine you won't abandon. If a 70-something network star can walk, box, eat like the Mediterranean, and keep weight off year over year, the blueprint is public. It isn't easy, it is simple, and it's the rare Hollywood body story that gets quieter as it gets better. But the calm doesn't hold for everyone. Some careers are built on fluctuating shapes and the pressure that follows. Up next, the actor whose history of swings became a public Rorschach test without a single confirmed admission to the needle. His body changed. The storyline did not. Jonah Hill has been through more public shapeshifts than most actors working today. And every time he shows up looking different, the same machine spins up. Charts, side-by-sides, wild theories. He hasn't said he's on a weekly pen. He hasn't hinted at it either. That silence isn't coy, it's a boundary. And that boundary is the point of this chapter. Here's the part that gets lost when a photo goes viral. This is someone who's spoken openly about anxiety, about stepping off the publicity carousel, and about protecting mental health even when a big project is on the line. He's also worked jobs that demand different looks. Thinner for one role, heavier for another, and those swings stick in memory far longer than the credits do. Put those pieces together, and you get a magnet for speculation, no matter what he actually says. The internet wants a single cause. His history offers a messier truth. He's trained hard, then relaxed. He's leaned down, then let life happen. Some seasons are strict, some are human. That's not a scandal. That's a calendar most people recognize. When fans try to reverse engineer a method from a handful of candidates, they're ignoring context, lighting, angle, timing, and the reality that bodies reflect stress, sleep, travel and work schedules as much as diets or gym time. What makes Jonah's story useful here is what it doesn't give you: a drug label, a clinic name, a neat moral. Instead, you get a reminder about consent in the age of OzPP headlines. Not everyone owes the internet an itemized plan. Not every transformation is a confession waiting to happen. And not every fluctuation is a rebound. Sometimes it's just a different priority for a different month. You can feel the tension in comment sections. Some cheer a leaner frame. Others worry he's shrinking too fast. And a third camp insists they know the method because they've seen that look before. The truth is simpler and less clickable. He hasn't claimed the meds. Until he does, treating his face like a lab report says more about our appetite for drama than his. So why include him at all? Because his chapter shows the ecosystem we're navigating. Admissions and denials grab headlines, but the speculation economy runs on people like Jonah, who set boundaries and keep living anyway. And that sets up our next story perfectly. The 2025 lightning rod whose coverage split the room, turned hypocrisy into a hashtag, and made the discourse louder than the music. She built a brand on radical self-acceptance. Then the internet decided to audit her body in real time. Lizzo's recent appearances ignited a frenzy of side-by-sides and how'd she do it threads, with timelines and angles treated like lab data. Depending on which headline you read, she's either proof that discipline wins or a covert convert to the new Hollywood fix. She hasn't offered a neat on-the-record confession. She hasn't waved a prescription pen on camera. What she has talked about, when she talks about it at all, is training, rehearsals, and tightening routines when life demands it. The split is what makes her chapter sticky. One camp says, changing your mind about your body doesn't cancel your message, it humanizes it. Another says the optics clash with the posts that made her iconic. Both readings travel fast because Lizzo has always been more than a playlist. She's a culture signal. When that signal shifts, so does the discourse. What's missing from the noise is nuance. No one knows the exact stack behind any single photo. Lighting, styling, show prep, and water shifts can swing a face and frame in a week. Touring blocks lean people out, time off, and softness back. That rhythm is normal for performers, but the OzP era teaches audiences to hunt for syringes in every change. With Lizzo, the confirmation everyone demands never arrives. That vacuum gets filled with speculation, and speculation gets clicks. There's also the pressure drumbeat. Pop is a camera sport. Visibility means critique, and critique can bend choices about food, fitness, outfits, calendar, everything. You can believe in body autonomy and still want less glare when your name trends for the wrong reason. That tension reads on screen. Some moments look leaner, some don't. And every frame gets scored like a test she never agreed to take. Why include her here? Because her story shows how messy this conversation gets when identity and image collide. She's the counterexample to the tidy reveal. No, I used it. No, I'd never. Just a moving target that forces viewers to sit with ambiguity. And that's useful. It reminds us not every transformation fits a headline, and not every rumor deserves a verdict. But the next twist is louder and clearer. It's not about whether someone took the shot. It's about turning the idea of the shot into a product on a shelf, complete with marketing copy and instant backlash. She didn't tease a secret. She put it on a label. In September 2024, Kourtney Kardashian's wellness brand Lemme launched GLP-1 Daily. marketed as a supplement to support the body's GLP-1 pathway, instantly billed by lifestyle press as an Ozempic-style alternative. The Knave did the heavy lifting. The internet did the rest. Here's the fine print that fueled the backlash. Lemmy's own materials note the capsules don't contain semaglutide, tirzepatide, or any prescription GLP-1 agonist, and they're not a GLP-1 drug. Critics argued the branding blurred that line for shoppers skimming on TikTok speed. Medical write-ups and explainer pieces echoed the same caution. A supplement can say GLP-1 support without containing the medicines people associate with the acronym. By spring 2025, the controversy left the comment section and walked into court. Two putative class action lawsuits in California targeted Lemmy GLP-1 Daily, alleging misleading or false advertising tied to the product's name and claims. Industry and legal trade outlets tracked the filings through April and June, underscoring how quickly the GLP-1 boom created a gray market of support products riding pharma's coattails. Their allegations, not verdicts, but the headlines were loud. Experts piled on with a broader warning. The GLP-1 craze made it easy to confuse supplement marketing with drug efficacy. Newsrooms and health reporters noted that many GLP-1 supplements lean on individual ingredients with limited or mismatched evidence, and none of it equals the clinical results of prescription agonists. Translation: don't expect a capsule to perform like a shot approved by the FDA for diabetes or obesity. Why does this chapter matter in a video about transformations? Because it flips the script. We've seen admissions, denials, and strategic silences. Lemmy shows the monetization of the moment, packaging the idea of a GLP-1 into something you can toss in a cart. For fans, that blurs trust. If the label winks at a drug category without being the drug, are you buying help or buying a vibe? That's the tension critics kept circling, and it sets up a bigger question for the close. If an era starts with injections and ends with supplements that sound like injections, what's the real cost of chasing the after photo? On bodies, on wallets, and on the truth. Because the story isn't just who used what, it's how a medical breakthrough turned into a marketing language the whole culture speaks now. The pattern is loud. Quick fixes, quiet side effects, public praise, private second thoughts. Some stars owned it, others drew a line. A few turned the moment into a product. The thread running through all of it isn't willpower or hype, it's trade-offs. So here's the question to take with you. If the perfect after photo comes with fine print, what's the smarter flex? Speed or honesty about the path you choose? Because trends fade, bodies remember. And the only story that lasts is the one you can live with when the cameras go dark.